A lot of time men don't express fear not because we don't want it, but more like we were never taught to express it. Because when we were young, I guess it was imprinted in us that being afraid or scared or cry is a sign of weakness. If I'm looking back in my early ages, nobody ever told me like you're a coward or you shouldn't cry. But I remember from when there was movies and Lassie movie where the dog is coming home and everybody was crying and I'm like, I can't cry, and I was like 8 to 10 years old, and I don't know why I couldn't let myself cry or be sad or helpless or whatever, fear. Uh, the only emotion in a way that was allowed was anger, or it maybe wasn't allowed, more it was tolerated. Men often express anger, but the behind emotion is fear, helplessness, anxieties, or anything else. Because if you show anger, anger can be unreal or unrealistic substitute for power, which is not, but it seems like who is somebody who's angry is like he everybody's afraid of him or he's in control, but in reality he's far from controlling himself or the situation he's in. I'm referring here more on men's because firstly I'm a man, so I know where we come from, and secondly from my years in police I've noticed that men have more aggression, especially in traffic or in some dangerous situations where women can just hide in fear or pull back, but men often just react with anger or aggression or anything similar. A few days ago, I've had an incident and in traffic. That's why I'm a lot of times referring to traffic, because there's a lot of emotion and everything is happening there. And I remember I was doing some training with my bike. And firstly, I have to admit I had a problem that I wanted to come to one spot and I got a little lost. So I get front and back and left and right. So I was a little nervous, which I have to be honest here. And then when I was driving back, I'm like, trying to get back the time I lost in a way, because I had a time frame. And I'm training and everything. And when I'm driving on the cycle path, at least I thought it was a cyclist path, and I'm going pretty fast, around 30 kilometers per hour. And then I see a man in the corner of my eye, and he's getting out of a car. And then I'm getting prepared, and this is all subconsciously, I'm getting prepared to brake, and he jumps on my cycling path. And I was luckily ready, and I hit brakes, and my back wheel just stops full, and it's like, and I'm stopping like 3 feet from a man, and he was really scared. I can see in his eyes, and he literally jumped on this cyclic pathway. I remember this fear in his eyes. I reacted as well, but I was anticipating it at least a little. And then he moved aside, and I'm going like few meters ahead, and I want to go my way. I really don't want to argue with people, regardless if they cut me off or they jump on the pathway or anything else. I've just learned that it takes a lot of my energy and stress if I'm getting into the all angry emotion. But not lucky for me, this guy was probably, because of the fear, he got angry, as I was talking in the beginning. And his fear immediately turned into anger. And he was like, what are you doing here? You have a road there, and here is the path for pedestrians. And what did you do and everything? And I remember I just wanted to forget it and just go, because he was like a few meters behind. But as I said, I was a little nervous and in not good mood, because I had sidetracks and I got a little lost. So my nervousness was a little higher than normal, and that was enough. And his anger turned my nervousness and the incident that happened into anger as well. So we got two people angry. And what happened was that I'm like stopping and turning my back. And I'm like, what did you say? And I wasn't nice. I'll be honest here. And he's like, you're driving on the pathway. This is for pedestrians. There is the road. You should drive on the road. And I have to say, I would really love to ride on the road, but it's not allowed to ride in these bigger roads, because it's a little dangerous and police officers can fine you if you drive on the road. But I would love to drive on the road, because it's faster, it's better road, and you don't have any pedestrians and people there and cyclists. So that was another thing that was problematic for me, because I was in my head forced to drive in this cycle path, and he thought I made a mistake, and that I was driving on the pedestrian path. So we start arguing, and I remember my anger pushing up, and I just wanted to tell him, can you look, this is cycling path. This is not walking path. And he's like, no, this is a walking path. You should drive on the road. And I remember his shift when he calmed down a little, that he started to look, am I right or am I wrong? And this kept for some time we talking about. And I was 100% I was right. And I saw in his eyes, he is 100%, he was right. And our amygdala was talking, our emotions were talking, not our sense. Because if we stopped for a second, we would see both that this was walking and cycling path. So we were both right and wrong. He should in a way be careful when he jumped out of a car, and I, for myself, should be more careful with driving or slowing down my bike, and then wouldn't hit him, or I wouldn't go near him in a way that we both would be scared. But I've learned that just a little later, when I start thinking and watching, when I already gone, this is apparently cycling and walking path. And that really made me think. And the funny thing was, like, we were really angry and we didn't calm down. And then I just remember his wife, and she was there, and she was the only rational person there. And she's like, I remember her saying in a way like, come on, please, can you just both cut it out? She was really just trying to calm down the situation. And she probably, I was like, I wanted to say to her, like, I'm really sorry you have such an ass for a husband, because he was pretty aggressive, and he jumped at me from the start. And like I said, I had my part. I got nervous and angry as well. And then like I said, and then I just said sorry to this wife and just went my way. And I remember my anger got calmed down pretty fast, because I do know that this happens rarely inside of me last couple of years, because I'm really been working on this, not to get angry, or when I get angry, I'm managing my anger in something else. I just wanted to be fair here, and when I drove away, I just wanted to see, was I wrong? Because I was, like I said, I was 100% sure I'm right. And then it crossed my mind that this probably was cycling path and walking path as well. I'm not sure that it was a walking path. I didn't go check it back. It was definitely a cycling path, and it was pretty narrow, which is not good for a city path for walking and cycling. But it was like it was, and nobody was to be blamed from us about that. So what I wanted to say here is both of us were in probably some kind of a fear, some kind of a stress and helplessness, because we couldn't do anything. We found ourselves in this narrow path, and there was not room for both of us. I would, if I would see him a little, if he would jump a second or two later, I would probably hit him hard, and we would have damages big time, because I was driving fast. I was on speed bike and I was just going, and this helplessness of ours brought us to anger, because we couldn't admit to ourselves that we were afraid, or that we were helpless, or that nobody was at fault. And that's the problem. We as a man are brought up or trained as being strong. So he couldn't have said like, why did you hit me? I was scared. You shouldn't drive that fast. Can you please? I'm really scared now. I'm shaking, because I think he was literally shaking. These are not the words somebody of his status and age would use, because he was like a little older guy, and he was like well dressed and everything. And I saw that his wife and he went somewhere to some place, and they were dressed really nice. So he couldn't pose there as some kind of a loser boy or anything else. So this incident really stayed with me, and I remember similar incident with something that happened a few months ago, when I was going to the store, and when we were driving us on a parking lot, I was in a passenger seat, and I usually get pretty fast out of the car, like this guy that I almost hit. And I remember us stopping, and I remember me getting out of the car, and there was a car already parked, and he was again a little older man, and he was opening the door at the same time as I was. And when I was opening the car and jumping out, he was opening his car door, and I don't know if I think we hit a little, and we both, stopped it at some point to not hit hard. And I remember when I jumped out of the car, I got so frightened. I can't tell you how much my body was like just covered in adrenaline and fear. I don't know why. And in a way, I think he had a similar situation. And when I jumped out of the car and get in the back of the car, he was getting out of the car, and at the back of the car, his car as well. And I remember that there was, for a fraction of a second, we both were angry. I remember my anger, like, what are you opening the door? But I was pretty much calm before. So before I got reactive of my anger, I remember just saying, I was so scared when we opened the door. I said it out loud. And I remember his anger just washing away. And I was like, I got so angry. And he's like, yeah. And then we exchanged few words, and I was like, I don't know what even happened. I was like jumping out of the car. I'm so sorry about it. And he's like, no problem. And we it was whole different reaction because I expressed my fear and stress. It was really a big adrenaline stress for my body. I remember I was like, wow, what's happening? And I got shaken pretty fast if somebody startles me. And I remember we exchanged few words and we were laughing in 10, 20 seconds. And we were like best buds and hey, take care and see you and see you. So these two situations with similar background, both had fear, helplessness. The circumstances led that we collided in both cases. But in the first cases, both of us reacted on anger. But in the second case, we didn't. And it made the whole different story. Everything was different. So the next time something like that happens to you, and traffic is the best training spot for this, because you can literally sit in the car and cut somebody a little. I'm not suggesting that, but you can do it a little and see his reaction, and you just try to stay calm and see what's happening inside of you. Or when you're walking and somebody doesn't want to move, or on a bike, there's a lot of situation in traffic you can use to test your fears, being helpless, circumstances that just collide together. There's a lot of people in traffic, and we go our different ways and they collide sometimes. So you can just see what's happening inside and how do you react. And if fear comes to anger, stress, and anxiety, there is something to work on.